An oil change, that oil might go in your gas tank. News at 10 starts now.
This is KTVB, where the news comes first. Live from Idaho's News Channel 7, Gerry May, Carolyn Holly, meteorologist Rick Lance, and Mark Johnson on sports. Idaho's #1 news at 10 starts now.
These days, it seems like there is a meth lab bust every week.
Well, the governor took a big step in cracking down on the ever-growing problem. A bill for mandatory sentencing and stiffer penalties is on the way for hearings in the Idaho Senate. Dana Drake is in the newsroom with more.
Well, the proposed legislation would make it easier for prosecutors to push meth manufacturers and dealers behind bars and keep them there.
We've got to get a handle on meth.
State Senator Denton Darrington says some proposed legislation will help the public, police, and prosecutors fight the war against meth.
Meth is the drug of choice now. Meth labs are being busted all over the state, and we need to get a handle on it if we're going to protect our people.
The proposal lawmakers are considering would make it easier to prosecute those who attempt to deal and manufacture meth, even in cases where the meth lab is found without any meth.
It just doesn't seem like we ever get anything to stick on them.
Boise police officer Dan Barber comes in contact with meth manufacturers, users, and dealers on a weekly basis. He says officers may arrest a meth manufacturer one day, then see them back on the streets the next.
And if nothing happened in the system, they're going to be right back out on the streets doing it again.
The proposed legislation would give meth makers and dealers more jail time. That's something Barber says could help scare them straight.
Hopefully, if we can get them out of the picture earlier on with some stiffer penalties and actual penalties early on, then we can deter their later activities.
The proposal would put meth traffickers behind bars for a minimum of 5 years with up to $25,000 in fines. And those who attempt to sell and manufacture meth would get a minimum of 2 years in prison with $10,000 in fine. Now, critics of the proposed legislation fear it would put a burden on the prison system. Back to you.
Very interesting. Okay, thank you, Dana.
A property tax hike without voter approval? Well, there's a bill in the Idaho State House that would allow struggling school districts to do just that in emergency situations. The state lawmakers are concerned about lawsuits filed by school districts with health and safety problems. Sponsors hope this bill is a way to stop those suits.
If you don't have that mechanism, then we are wide open to litigation, I believe.
But Idahoans for Tax Reform called the proposed bill the Boston Tea Party tax bill and say it's, quote, designed to salvage school districts from their mismanagement and that is coldly imposed without a vote from the citizens. If it becomes law, school districts would only be able to raise property taxes $25 on a $100,000 home. Attorney Robert Huntley, who represents school districts, says that kind of tax hike isn't big enough to solve most health and safety problems. Wilder schools hope the third time's the charm for a $4 million school bond. Trustees will again ask voters to pass the bond for a new middle through high school